this twice. All right, so at this point, we can see the front view and the side view, and I'm looking at Ashlyn's work, and it's looking good. Everything is lining up. Everything makes sense. We've got a front view and a side view, okay? So what we have to figure out is the bottom silhouette, okay? So in order to figure out the bottom silhouette, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark here and a mark here, okay? And you don't have to use a ruler, but just do your best kind of straight line. That is going to tell me the width of the bust from left to right. Does that make sense to everybody? Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the side view and we are going to mark both sides of the side view. And I'm really, to help me gauge a straight line, I look at the negative space here. Now I'm just going to try to get a parallel to that line. So now, is the shoulders a box shape, you guys, with corners like this? Can everybody put everything out of your hands? I need everybody looking up front. This is the kind of thing that is simple if you watch it, but if you're not paying attention, you're going to need help, and I don't have the time to help all of you one-on-one. So we're really trying to learn here. Is a rectangle the correct shape for these rounded shoulders?
No.
No. So if somebody took a machete and sliced you in half at your shoulder height, you'd probably be pretty round. Okay? So we're going to start with just an oval shape. So I'm just sketching off those views. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so this is going to be the shape of my piece. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this here where I can easily access it. And I'm going to have my paper where I can see it. Let me rearrange the thing here so we can all see coils and stuff. Now something that you could do, if it's helpful, is you could actually fold the sides so that it can stay up. I do recommend, I wouldn't fold the actual piece though. So now that's kind of staying up. You guys see how I can kind of see it? You're not going to leave it up the whole time, but it will help you in moments. Does that make sense? So I'm just preparing my draft so that I can really see what it's going to look like. Now, I've got these coils here. I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of it. Now, we are doing the thick coils, and the reason why we're doing the thick coils is because when you're coiling, you actually don't use very much of it. I'm going to go on the inside of my mark that I just made. I do not want to be bigger than this mark. How many of y'all built your monsters way bigger than your mark, than your draft? We don't have space in the kiln to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap the two sides. Oh, can't reach my tools. There we go. Oh, that was the wrong tool. So when I overlap the two sides, see how they're on top of each other? On this one, to do it properly, I'm going to cut it at an angle. See how I cut that at an angle? Do you guys see that line right there? I can take the top off, save that. I get rid of this little nugget, and now those two pieces are going to fit perfectly together. So before I start doing this, I'm just going to really make sure that my shape is as good as I can get it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish those coils together. I can even flip it over and make sure that the underneath side is really squished together. Everybody get how easy that was? Did I score anything?
No.
No, I did not. Now, as I'm going up to the next coil, what's really fascinating is if I were to fold this paper, which I recommend you all do, on the base, you can really be able to see how tall this is. So I need to go one more coil up. Does that make sense? It's not quite there yet. I need a little bit more height before I start going inward. So I'm gonna, but it does, see how it does curve inward? So this next coil, I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm gonna put it a little bit on the inside, on the shoulder. See how that's gonna start making a round? I could go really far on the inside if I wanted to. I could make it wider and go on the outside of that coil. But for this one, I think I'm just slightly on the inside. So I'm gonna put this coil just slightly on the inside. That's gonna help me keep it kind of round. And then if you're a lazy baby like me, I just rip them, okay? And then I shove them together. That's how I normally do it. I will attach those coils on the inside and the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish with my fingertip downward. And I can also squish upward if I want to. And if you put this on a wheel, you can spin it really easily as well.
Oh, to keep them solid so they don't fall
So they're
apart.
going to become one. And I also have to do the same thing on the inside. So the reason why I recommend that for 99% of the things that you build with coils, you use the biggest hole is because you're going to squish a third of it down on the outside and you're going to squish a third of it down on the inside. Yes, Nick?
If you have like, let's say hands reaching up from the shoulder area, should you count for that in the
You need to build the shape that you see, however that makes sense. If you, that kind of thing, let's just wait and do one-on-one, you and me. Yes, Nate?
How would I do my snout?
We're going to talk about other stuff. Don't worry. Right now, all we're going to do is we're going to draw, we're going to create the basic shape. Do you guys remember that basic shape without any of the details? You're not going to do a snout. You're not going to do a nose. You're not doing eyes. You're not doing ears. You're doing a mannequin. We're starting with the basic shape, which is a mannequin. Okay? Don't think about details yet. This is just rough, loose, and fast. Okay? So I've got this going, and I'm comparing it, and now I'm at the correct height. Okay? But this is really crucial, kids. Where's all my weight gonna be on this sculpture?
The neck?
The neck. The neck is going right below the neck. That's going to be holding all the weight of that head. So if I have no like scaffolding inside of here, it's going to collapse. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build scaffolding. And just right here I'm going to make a little mark. I can even use my Sharpie that I have here. I'm going to mark where my neck is inside of here. If you can't see something, let me know. And I'm just going to make a wall inside of here, and I'm going to squish it in. I'm going to make like basically a little wall right below each neck, side of the neck. I'm going to squish it in just like I did with the coils. It doesn't have to look pretty. Nothing's looking pretty yet. If I have two little coils like this, I could wrap them in on each other, especially, it doesn't matter because it's just wet clay on wet clay. You guys know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go ahead and squish this in. And so now I'm building the scaffolding at the same time as I am building, and this one's kind of low on that side, so I'm going to. But I just got to make sure that I'm squishing both sides and each end. And I'm really squishing it out. I shouldn't see any lines. It should, see right there, do you guys see, I don't know, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
See how right there I can still see where they were separated? That's bad. That's gonna crack off later. So I have to really squish that. It doesn't have to look pretty, but it has to look like they're one piece. Okay? So I have to do that on all of my sides. They have to become one. So as I go up, right now I need to go inward because all this has got to be solid. So what I'm going to do is grab another bit of coil here. And I can even take some paper, and there's a roll of paper right here, honestly. I recommend that you do this. And right now I'm not building on my board, which I do recommend that you do. That way the paper doesn't fall out when you go to take it to your tables. I'm just gonna grab and rip off a little bit of paper. That was way more than a little bit.
A little bit.
Share amongst yourselves. And I'm gonna ball this up nice. I don't want it too tight because your pieces are gonna shrink. Does that make sense? So if you ball it up, if it's too much, then just take a little bit off so that there's a little bit of room in there to flex. That's too much paper. Probably rip this in half and do both shoulders. I'm gonna stick that in there. Stick this in here. And I'm not worried about the middle part, okay, because those walls are gonna support. So as I'm doing this, if I need to use a little bit more paper, I can. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start building those shoulders. Now, how I recommend you build those shoulders is to go inward at this point, okay? So I'm gonna get this one, but I just wanna start really pushing this, well, pushing it inward. But this might be a little bit too high, but that's okay because I can always push downward. That's never a problem. Now, I do not recommend that you get crazy about it looking pretty. Have you seen me smooth anything?
No.
No, I have not smoothed anything. Please do not be a perfectionist. If you're doing it wrong if it looks good. Okay? Just make sure that that paper's not getting into your coils as you go. I mean, it's not the end of the world if it does. It'll just burn out in the kiln. But just make sure that you're still squishing real good, is my point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start pinching these coils, and I'm comparing, and that looks pretty good. I'm forming this shape, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to that neck. I can even zigzag this coil. That's the messy way to do it. And I'm going to squish all that in on itself.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, it is kind of difficult to get in there with your hand, and so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to get the shoulder. And then this is the more neat way to do it. You can do like little rainbows.
Oh, I like that.
But I have a gap. Can you guys see that gap in there for that wall? So I want to shove another coil inside of there as well, so that that scaffolding is going all the way up to this shoulder. I really want to make sure that there's no air bubbles between those coils, so I'm really squishing real good. Now, this is the only there might be one other point in this process where we have to let things set up. Today, this is as far as we're going to get. We need to let all this set up. I forgot my scaffolding inside of there. I'll stick that in there. So why do you think we need to let this set up before we go any further? So I can support the head. But honestly, I could probably get the neck today. You know what I'm saying? I could probably get that neck. Now, this is, once you really get used to things, kids, it's just gonna fly. You could literally just keep going and keep going until you feel like you got it. Then really squish it on in there. It's fast, it's rough, it's quick, it's messy, but it's gloriously quick. Do you see how nice this is?
No.
Okay. It's a lot faster than making pinch pots when you get in the groove. Okay? And you can make a lot more bigger and a lot more complex shapes than pinch pots when you're working this way. So, the one thing that I need you to know is that however you let this dry tonight is how it's going to dry. So I would say the last 20 minutes of class, don't do it before then, but the last 20 minutes of class, you want to start smoothing things. So you're going to get your red rubber rib, which I can't seem to find mine right now. Welcome, Greg. And you're going to smooth all this out. Are you just coming into work, or do you need someone? Who's it for?
Bones.
Bones isn't in this class. I have her on A days.
He
Oh, sorry.
is,
Bones.
okay, I'll just run this back. I don't know why he told me.
Okay.
I'm sorry for being mean. It just looks very messy.
It is very messy. So that's why the last 20 minutes, you're going to smooth all that out. Does that make sense? Oh, thank you for the red rubber rib. Who was the deer that did that? The little sweet birdie on my back, always making sure I got what I need. Okay, so then this is going, and I would make sure that you get a flat top. Look how messed up my top is. So I am just going to shove this in there. And I'm gonna make sure that it's thick too. So this is very normal. See how that area right there is pretty skinny? So I'm just gonna shove a little bit more clay right there. See how beautiful this is wet on wet, you guys? Like, it's so malleable. So next class, when I continue this sculpture, just for the purpose of a demo, I'm not actually gonna make your sculpture, don't worry. But for the next class, this will all be closer to leather hard once I let it set up. All I have to score on is the first coil, and then every coil after that, I just get to do wet on wet. It's great. Does that make sense to everybody? How many of you feel like you totally understand coiling at this point? All right, so we're just at this point trying to get the base, and then I'll do a second demo for the actual head part. Everybody got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Make sure you have a nice, wide, thick, well-supported neck. Now, look at the time, children. I don't think we have time to start this today. We got it here at 11:15. We only have 30 minutes. So emotionally prepare yourself to actually start coiling next class. Give me about 5 minutes to finish up this demo. You don't have to watch, but just start working on your coils. Or sorry, not your coils. Sorry. Start working on your draft. If you have nothing to do, then go find your artwork and glaze it. I don't know what to tell you, but we can't start coiling today. It took too long. Yes. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to grade your guys' drafts. Yeah. You can come over to me and get advice, though, while I'm working. Yes, sir. What? Say that again?